Oh my gosh. Um, so I kind of have been bad about like filming videos and putting them up, but this video, for many reasons. One of them was 'cause last week I spent a bunch of time with my cousins. Well, so I spent a lot of time with babies, sleeping on me, snuggling on me, and me reading, and it was lovely. But because of that, I was only really able to put out one video in the past 2 weeks instead of two. But that's okay. So today, because I don't really have much going on, I do have a video for a longer project that I could have filmed, but I don't have the whole thing ready for you, and I don't want to like release part of it without releasing all of it. So what you're getting today is a haul because I have a problem and I bought a shit ton of books last year. And so these books I think I bought all the way back in November, which is not that far away. Like I said, I bought a lot of books. So, oops. Yeah. So I have 20 books to show you all. And let's just cut the crap and let's show them to you. So the first one that I got is Carry On by Rowell. This was kind of like in the era of what I was doing, and I mean I still do this at bookstores, which would be going up to a bookseller and be like, hey, I'm a teacher, and what a fun game that my students and I play is we volley queer book recommendations back and forth. So what I need your help doing is giving me a queer book recommendation. So this was one of them. I had obviously heard of Carry On by Rowell before. People have kind of described it as like Harry Potter like fan fiction, which I have not read Harry Potter back to back. Don't tell some of my best friends that because they think I have. And kind of in the wake of J.K. Rowling's massive transphobia, and as a fact me being a trans individual myself, I've made the executive decision to not deal with that and not read that. So I'm kind of interested in what this is. One of my other really good friends really loves this and has recommended this to me. So I have a copy of the first book. So I'm going to read this and see what I think much about this. But it says on the back that Carry On is a ghost story, a love story, and a mystery. It has just as much kissing and talking as you'd expect from a Rowell novel, but far more monsters. I haven't really read any Rowell, so I don't know how much kissing and talking to expect. But kind of shifting gears a little bit, I have some nonfiction to show you, and this first bit is Berating Sweetgrass. This is an indigenous wisdom, scientific knowledge, and teachings of plants. And this is by Rowell. The author is a person of indigenous descent, is indigenous. I'd seen this go like making its round as like a nature book, and I've been really interested in enjoying nature books and science books. And I also bought this during Native American History Month, and so I was like, hey, I saw a copy of this at a bookstore and was like, hey, why not pick this up and give this a shot? So now I own this and be interested to see when I pick this up. I don't really have a plan so far. Let me see if there's anything, a blurb that is really interesting, but says anyone who cares about the environment and everyone else period should have Braiding Sweetgrass on their table. It captures the true reverence between Native Americans, the earth, and a relationship that we need to survive. So that's kind of like the take that this book is going to have. Really interesting to read about. Next book, we have some more nonfiction. I haven't been gravitating to that as much recently. I don't know if there's just not a lot of stuff that has been published recently that has been intriguing to me. This did sound interesting to me, and that is The Mathematics of the Gods and the Algorithms of Men. This is a cultural history by Paolo Nazili, and the take that this is going to have is kind of like the cultural origins of math and algorithms. And I found that to be very interesting. I thought that was a very interesting intersection of kind of my areas of specialty, which is computer science and anthropology, and I say they're my areas of specialty because I have literal degrees in them. So I thought that this was interesting, kind of praise and saying that it's one of the finest books ever published and one of the most important books of the 20th and 21st centuries. Yeah, I like this question, and this question on the inside is really kind of what gripped me about this book. It says that, is mathematics a discovery or an invention? Have we invented numbers, or do they truly exist? What sort of reality should we attribute to them? So I thought that sort of whole discussion would be very, very interesting and that I would find compelling. So that's this one. Shifting gears a little bit to a lot more fiction. There is a little bit more nonfiction coming towards the end, but the rest of this is fantasy, and a lot of it is gay shit, so be ready for that. And coming in hot and heavy, we have the very first volume of The Husky and His White Cat Shizen. This is this is by Rowell, which odd for me because I've always seen it as meat bun doesn't eat meat. Yeah, I'm impatiently waiting for the drama that's based off of these novels to be released. It's finished. It is shot. We are just waiting on the CCP to be less homophobic. So that's kind of what we're waiting on, but fingers crossed that it happens sometime soon. I actually started reading the unofficial English translations that were posted online, and a very funny connection that I found out relatively recently after I purchased this book and the subsequent sequel was that one of my students actually helped work on the unofficial translation, and I thought that was pretty cool. And I was like, oh my god, I read your translation, which was very, very funny to me. There were many translators working on that, and it was just very funny. Very, very strange connection that my student and I met had. But this is the official English translation, and you follow this man who dies hated as this hated emperor. Nobody likes him. He's hated, and he dies, and he is brought back into his younger body, but he still has like all of the knowledge of like a 30-something-year-old man, however old he was when he died, and he has to relive his life again and try to make changes. And it is a gay love story, and I'm very, very excited. There's more than one of these genres coming, because I buy all of them compulsively. The next book that we have is actually a book that I have read, and that is Strike the Zither. This is by John He. You are following this strategist who is existing in this like fantasy 3 warring kingdoms time period, and her loyalties are tested. And I'm gonna be honest, I was really excited to read this book. I think I like pre-ordered this, and I was not gonna lie, I was a little bit let down. That being said, I don't think it is bad. It just didn't grip me the way that I wanted it to. I would still say if you find the premise interesting, give it a shot. Why not? The blurbs, a lot of them saying that it's full of twists and turns. Says reimagines the Chinese classic Romance of the Three Kingdoms in a way never seen before, which intense twists and turns that pay homage to its inspirations while being refreshingly different. And that is by Jiran J. Zhao, which is one of the reasons I kind of got the book, because it was because of the blurb by Jiran J. Zhao, who's an author that I really like. Next book is Hell Followed With Us. And this is by Andrew Josephine White. This, one of my students is currently reading and is constantly begging me to read. I did not buy this because of the student. I bought this on a bookseller's recommendation. This is YA. It is gay, and one of the main characters is trans and living in this post-apocalyptic world and trying to figure out how to exist. And one of the things that my student really appreciates about this book is that the main character doesn't feel the need to bind, which is a constant struggle that I personally deal with. I know, I promise I'm going to read this. Have it. It's probably gone up in my priority list since my student is reading it. I probably want to finish it before that student graduates so that we can talk about it and talk about how fabulous this is. But I am really excited to get into this, and yeah, it's like horror. What does the blurb say? Moving and timely tale of queer perseverance. The next one is another bookseller recommendation, and that is Ziggy Stardust and Me. This is by James Brandon. This is another queer story, and I don't know much about it other than I think there's like some like rock star person in this, and that's all I know. Better to love both self-acceptance and David Bowie. That's funny. James Brandon's Ziggy Stardust and Me is both charming and timely. It's queer and it's also YA, and it's contemporary. I know that much. It's not a queer fantasy. That's this one. Next book is another book that I have read, and that is Elatsoe. This is by Darcy Little Badger. This is, I think it's young adult, but it's a mystery. You follow this main character trying to figure out what has happened to her cousin, why her cousin is dead. The other thing about this book is that it exists in a world where you have these like fantastical creatures like vampires and werewolves, and it's a really interesting blend of the different kinds of like mythologies, because a lot of what the main character Elatsoe deals with is stuff from like her own like culture. There's very interesting stuff to deal with like land and land claims, and I don't know. It's very, I don't want to spoil much of anything, but I really like the fantastical touches that are in this book. It is really nice, very, very compelling, and I breezed through it pretty quickly. I read this back in November for like an Indigenous readathon that I was a part of called the Skoden Readathon, and quite enjoyed this. So another one that I picked up is this Poison Heart by Kaylin Byron. And do I know much about this other than it's sapphic? No. I do know that I have read Kaylin Byron's Cinderella is Not Dead and enjoyed that, so decided to pick this up. Maybe there is like fairy tale retellings. I don't know. What does the back say? The back says that it's thrilling and my god, I cannot read. Magnetic. The Poison Heart pulses with true black girl magic and endless mystery. So that was from the author of Running with Lions. Yeah, so did I buy this on a whim? Yes. Do I have a problem with it? No. We have another book that I pre-ordered. That is The Dragon's Promise. This is by Elizabeth Lim. This is the sequel to the Six Crimson Cranes series book. This is the second book in the duology, and I am so glad that there is a second book. I am not currently reading it despite the bookmark sticking out of the book. I thought I was going to, but then I found a different book that I'm going to pick up before I start this one. That is my life. So in this book, we are following our main character as she is striving to return a dragon pearl to the land of the dragons, who we were kind of introduced to in the last book, but I'm really excited to see more of the implications of that. And you can see her little paper crane friend on the top, and I'm just excited to see what this has in store for us. That's A Dragon's Promise. Continuing on, the next book was another book recommended to me by a bookstore seller, and that is All Our Hidden Gifts. This said that it is going to give witchy contemporary vibes with sapphic energy. This is by Carolyn Donahue. I don't know what this is about. Did I buy this based off of a recommendation? Yes. Do I have a problem with that? No. The back says a magical surprise of a book. Ghostly menace, queer liberation, and sweet non-binary romance to fill a room with this modern Irish contemporary. I think the non-binary romance was kind of what got me hooked on it as well. That's what I am, and I love representation in books. And this, I believe, is also YA. Continuing on, another very, very impulsive pick from me from seeing it at a bookstore, and that is The Order of the Pure Moon Reflected in the Water by Jen Cho. And honestly, I looked at this book and I was like, ooh, this cover looks very compelling. Let me check. Is this gay? Oh my god, this is gay. This is so exciting. I'm going to buy this. And then I open up the first book inside, and it says Jen Cho returns with a found family wuxia fantasy that combines and I stopped reading because wuxia is a genre that I really love and I've come to truly appreciate. I mostly watch it using Chinese dramas. I haven't really read too much of it in book form, because not a lot of it is published in book form or in English, really. So I'm very excited to get this one. And Ken Liu also blurbs this, which I love. Ken Liu had just finished his whole Nanoline Dynasty, and I'm so sad that it's over, but he says that it's fantastic, defiant, and utterly brilliant. And it's a novella. All this praise is making me want to pick this book up right now and read it. But I must have restraint. I must finish at least Detransition Baby first. Because that's the book that I'm currently reading. So yeah, that's this book. The next book that I read is another sequel, and that is The Heart of the Sun Warrior. This is by Su Lin Tan. This is the sequel, a lot of sequels too, to Daughter of the Moon Goddess. I'm very excited for this one. Really love the cover. Really like Daughter of the Moon Goddess. Immediately had to pre-order this when you could pre-order this, because you couldn't pre-order it for a long time. I was so sad. So now I'm patiently waiting to pick this up and read it. This says epic, romantic, and enthralling. And I'm just really excited to see the main characters love, flourish, and I think we're going to get more information. Dad, because the Sun Warrior, it's in the title. I'm just very excited for this and very happy. The next book I got is another recommendation from a bookseller, and that is The Other Ever Afters. This is a graphic novel, so we can kind of see this. And the whole conceit behind this graphic novel is to have queer fairy tales. Yeah, I read that. They're sweet, they're cute. I think it's perfect for like middle grade. Really see anything super wrong with them, other than I wish maybe some of them were longer. And they're queer, and who doesn't like queer fairy tales? The next book is another book that I have read, and that is My Heart is a Chainsaw. This is by Stephen Graham Jones. This is a horror book, and I liked this. I really like Stephen Graham Jones as a horror writer. This is another book that I read for the Skoden Readathon, which is the Indigenous Readathon. I think I've kind of learned my lesson with horror books to kind of not do ones that reference a bunch of other horror properties, because I don't know those properties, and I think this pulls it off better than some of the other books that I've read with kind of a similar conceit, where my kind of preferences lie. I think that Stephen Graham Jones is a really great author. It's just with my personal horror preferences, and I prefer a lot more of the physical, like humans doing bad shit to other humans rather than mystical properties. I think that's kind of like, maybe not an issue, but it's just a personal preference that I had with this book, especially with this book where you have such a good opportunity to just have it be a mass murder. That's me, in my personal opinion, and I think The Only Good Indians, which is his other horror, works a little bit better as having like non-people on people horror better than this does. I think it's a me thing. It's a me thing. It's not a Stephen Graham Jones thing. It's a me thing. So I will continue to pick up the stuff that he writes. And this is a part of a series. I do not know if I will continue with the series, but I will continue to read Stephen Graham Jones. So that's this one. The next book have another thing that I pre-ordered. And that is the Scum Villain Self-Saving System. This is the 4th volume, which means that it is the last volume in this series. This is by Moshan Tongxiu. And this is the first of MXTX's work. And fun fact, I accidentally pre-ordered the like special edition of this, so it came in with a bunch of posters and like bookmarks and stickers that I do not have with me. Oops. Well, I do have them with me. They're just not within reaching distance. And so it came and it had like a whole like gloss over it, and I was like, what? I didn't understand that, and then I opened it, and then all of the stuff fell out, and I was like, oh, I didn't realize I was buying this. So I have to make sure that I do buy the deluxe special edition for the other 2 MXTX books, which I have for Grandmaster Demonic Cultivation. I haven't, because you cannot buy the deluxe ones for Heaven's Official Blessing yet. So this is the 4th one. I'm only 2 out of the 4 books way through the series. But this, again, you are following a man who is taken from his world that it has no magic, that we would kind of all understand, and he has transmigrated into the body of one of the characters in a novel, and he has to try and make this shit novel, as he calls it, into a not shit novel, and in the process it becomes gay, and makes me happy. And this is another like book of Danmei fiction. Next book that I have is Dark Rise. This is by C.S. Pacat. I really liked C.S. Pacat's other work, King's Rising, and honestly was just looking for more queer fantasy stuff. And I bought this before I read the Captive Prince trilogy, and this is YA, so I'm super excited to get hands dirty with this, because it's gay. I'm very predictable. I like gay shit, okay? And especially gay fantasy. I believe I have all the books I own the most gay fantasy, or I would classify as gay fantasy, at like 10% of my books being gay fantasy, which is hilarious. Which is a lot of books, seeing as I have over 900 books, so at least 90, which, wow. Continuing on to, believe it or not, more gay fantasy, and that is Girls of Fate and Fury. This is by Natasha Ngang. This is the third book in the Girls of Paper and Fire series. I'm not really sure what it is called. This is sapphic. This is very intense. A lot of darker themes. I think this is still technically YA, but you are kind of following all of these characters in their last push on toppling a regime. This advertises it as being like, you know, the war has arrived. I think it could have gone harder on the war aspect, but that's just me. I have to remind myself that not everybody can write like Ken Liu writes and write amazing, fantastic battle scenes. Nor should I expect that of everybody, because Ken Liu is like a master of his craft. This is still good. Don't get me wrong. Girls of Fate and Fury. It is really good. It's a sapphic romance. Not romance. It's a sapphic fantasy, and it is all based off of Malaysian culture. Dark things in this. What does it say on the back? Thrust into the beauty and horror of the hidden palace, will this paper girl survive? Ideal for those seeking diverse LGBTQ fantasy stories. And I think it hits it right on the nail of the head. Moving on to the next book. We're getting close to the end, and this is another nonfiction. We have Sugar. This is The World Corrupted. This is by James Walvin, but I think this takes a look at like the sugar trade and sugar practices and what slavery has done to contribute to that. How the back says, how did a simple commodity once prized monopoly of kings and princes become an essential ingredient in the lives of millions before mutating yet again to cause a global health pandemic? The combination of sugar and slavery would transform the taste of the Western world. Masterfully and insightfully and probing, James Walvin's Sugar reveals the relationship between society and sweetness over the past 2 centuries, and how it explains our conflicted relationship with sugar today. And I thought that was compelling. And plus, it was less than $10. So I was like, there's really no excuse for me to not buy this book. So I did. We're coming up on the very last book that I am going to show you, and that is Sparrows of the Wind. This is by Gail Carson Levine. Gail Carson Levine is one of my favorite authors, like children's authors. I think this is also targeted at middle grade. I didn't realize that she had written anything relatively recently, and let's see actually when this was written, because then depending on the answer to that, the joke will be me, and I will be the problem. Okay, I don't feel ridiculous, because this was written in 2022. So last year, because I picked this up in November when I realized that this was a thing, and I was like, I don't care. It's Gail Carson Levine. I'm going to buy it. Do I know what this is about? No, absolutely not. I don't know. It says, behind my eyelids red bloomed, a glamour rose, hood beats, war cries, screams, no. Yards of cloth unfurled in a rush, a chaos of battling warriors. The fabric caught. I saw my beloved brother Ector curled on the ground inside Troy's wall, a spear through his chest, and knew that he had died. Interesting. So it seems like we're going to get more fantasy, Trojan, Greek stuff. Interesting. I'm intrigued. There you go. Those are all the books that I have purchased. Not ever, not recently, but just 20 of them that I will show you. I am tired and probably will edit this tomorrow at a coffee shop. I'm tired. I want to lie down and hopefully get some reading done. Bye.